We're live here shortly, guys. All right, welcome. Welcome to our live stream. And again, quick reminder, our Mondays and Thursday evenings on Instagram are our coaching series. We're going to add more of these, and we're moving more things over to Instagram and YouTube, but they will live under our stories on Instagram. They will live permanently on our YouTube page. So if you don't already subscribe to our YouTube page, go subscribe to it and like it. And then all of our stuff will live permanently there, so you can go back for your reference point and use it whenever you need to. All right, so let's do a real quick review and then quickly cover our work-rest ratio. So that's what we're going to cover today. So primary focus, work-rest ratio. What we covered last week on Monday was energy systems. And when we talked about energy systems, we covered the three main systems, right? So system number one is 0 to 10 seconds of high intensity, high burst energy moves. That is your ATP PC system. So that's adenosine triphosphate phosphocreatine. It is extremely high intensity. That is vertical jump, 40-yard dashes, anything lasting less than 10 seconds where you're working maximal effort. Then you've got your lactic acid, LaO2 system. Lactic acid pushes your lactic acid threshold system. That is anywhere from 10 seconds to 2 minutes. Highly dependent on your conditioning and on your experience level. But basically that LaO2 system, you'll know when you're in it because your muscles start to burn, your lungs start to burn. You get this feeling that you want to throw up and or stop or both. That's lactic acid accumulating so rapidly that your body can't shuttle it out, right? So lactic acid essentially is like a poison. It's ammonia and it's a bunch of other shit that accumulates in your body and it stops your muscles from working maximally. It's kind of a governor system on your body so that you don't injure yourself. It's a natural mechanism. It's something that we can train and work for, depending on our sport, for sure. But it is a real thing. And it is a real thing that we need to train around, which is where we'll get into work rest today. And it's something that we need to take into account on our training, our conditioning, and our sport. And then the third piece is aerobic. And that's anything that lasts longer than 2 minutes in a sustained kind of activity. So now we're talking, mile runs, we're talking long distance training, anything where you're trying to get into a steady state mode where you are just cranking on aerobic activity. And again, the energy systems, the energy that is used in those systems are different as well. So in the first two systems, we use primarily glucose, blood sugar, in that regard. So you're burning up all that blood sugar that's stored in your muscles and in your liver. And so you're utilizing that as your primary fuel source. As you start to kick into your aerobic conditioning, that's when you'll start to burn and utilize fatty acids and body fat for fuel if you're working for that long or sustained of an activity. So if body fat loss is your goal, like that's a whole nother topic, and it's something that I certainly want to cover. But that's a different animal than training for performance, right? I'm going to argue that if I'm training for performance and I eat very clean and very diligently, which you should be doing anyway, that I will maintain my lean and I will maintain my muscle mass and I'll maintain my metabolism, right? So I don't want to get myself in a situation where I've got to cut calories, because by cutting calories, you're going to inhibit or decrease your performance, which is no bueno on any level. So I want to be able to perform optimally, whether it's squatting, pushing sleds, hitting stairs, whatever activity that I want to do. So if I'm in a calorie deficit, that will be detrimental to performance. Now, I'm not saying that you should never do it, not saying that you shouldn't do it. I think that I've tried every which way imaginable. I've done the zero carb, keto diet, you name it. I've done the cyclical diet. I'm a big fan of those, high carb, low carb, right? So I've kind of cycled through all of these. So I got a lot of experience doing all of those things. But primarily what I'm talking about here, guys, is performance, how to improve that performance, and then how to think about creating a program to improve that performance. The nutritional piece can come, the recovery stuff can come. You got to build this kind of shit incrementally, right? So we want to build these big puzzles and put all these pieces together, and it evolves and it changes over time. As you adapt and you adjust to what we're doing, we make adjustments and we adapt to how you're accommodating and how you're progressing. All of those things are linked. So hopefully that makes sense. That's a little bit of background. It's a little bit of kind of what we covered last week. This week, what I want to talk about is work rest. And this is integral. A lot of times I get this consistently. I get it consistently because my training style is a little bit different than some of the programs that we have going on in the gym. So some of the programs are a little bit more metabolic. Some of them are a little bit more functional. I'm a little bit more old school in that I'm really training for strength, power, and some hypertrophy, right? I don't want to be like this big puffed up bodybuilder, but I want to be strong. I want to have muscles. So I'm really diligent with my work and my rest. And it relates to a lot of the exercises that you're doing. I'm going to give you a case in point of what I'm talking about. It's what we did yesterday. And we'll kind of take it from there. So how do we think about our work rest? Okay, so easy ways that you read about it in your textbooks. And let's talk about, I think, one that we all may know. And it's like a Tabata style, right? So a Tabata tempo, where you are working for 20 seconds and you're resting for 10. So let's call that we're going to go aerobic here and anaerobic here. So I'm going to keep two sides of the board. And so on one side, this is going to be our aerobic work. Aerobic work to rest ratios are usually 1 to 1 or 1 to less than 1. So I put up there 1 to 0.5 or 1 to 1. Tabata is 1 to 0.5. So for any of you guys that have done a Tabata, and Tabata, basically Dr. Tabata invented this and researched it and studied it, and there's a lot of information out there for it. I like it. They're fun, they're hard, they're challenging, they're efficient, they're effective, they're very, very short bursts of workouts. This is not something that you should or could be able to do for, a 1 hour session. I would think of Tabata as something that maybe I could do for 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'm pretty gassed, and then I got to recover and or do some steady state training. So when you're working in that Tabata tempo, let's just call it 1 to 1 because it's just easier to do the math. So I'm going to work for 20 seconds and rest for 20 seconds. If I'm doing big muscle exercises, so let's say I'm doing a squat jump for 20 seconds, right? So our squat jumps, our low jump, right? So I'm doing that repetitively for 20 seconds. And then I'm going to rest for 20 seconds. If I do 4 to 5 bouts of that, I'm going to get the lactic acid accumulating. My heart rate's going to be up at the 170s, 180s. I'm probably going to start to fail on form eventually, and my essentially vertical jump performance is going to decrease dramatically. Now, if I'm training to increase my vertical jump, that's not necessarily a good thing, right? I do want to work under some fatigue, but I would prefer you to be fully recovered. So if I'm gonna do a set of 20 seconds on a squat jump, I'm gonna take the 1 to 5 rest period because I wanna fully recover. Again, I'm working in that short, just into the lactic acid, the LaO2 system, so I'm just beyond 10 seconds, but I'm not really too far into that 10 to 2 minutes range, right, in that second energy system. So I'm just dipping into that lactic acid system. And so you'll start to get lactic acid to accumulate, but then I'm giving myself enough time to recover on the other side, right? So if I'm working for 20 seconds, I'm gonna rest for 5 times that, which is gonna be roughly a minute and a half. If you guys wanna go out there and do the math, I know it's a minute 40, but let's just call it a minute and a half. So I'm gonna work for 20, rest for 90. Or if you got a stopwatch, it's easier, rest for 100. And that's gonna be my ratio. So I'm gonna give myself enough work and rest to recover where I can work maximally for that 20 seconds and I can perfect my form. And then what that does, and this is the key point, guys, and I posted this earlier before we did this 6 p.m. live stream. What that does is it allows my body and my brain to work together to fire those neuromuscular synapses in a more efficient and effective way. So it allows me to reinforce mechanics, boom. It allows me to reinforce explosivity, and then it allows me to reinforce the entire range of motion that I have to get through to make that exercise effective, okay? So if I get to set 3, 4, set number 5, and I'm starting to fail, I want to take a little bit longer rest period and then march on my way and move into the next bout of exercise. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that starts to begin to parse out why we train one way or why we train another way, okay? So it has to do with the end point. It's got a lot to do with where you are and as it relates to maturity, experience, and just overall general what have you been doing. And then it also has a lot to do with what we're trying to get out of the end point of the training. So if we're just looking for a conditioning, right? So let's build up your lactic acid system. I still wouldn't work 1-to-1. If I'm a primarily anaerobic athlete, I'd work 1-to-2 or 1-to-3. I'm working for 20, but I'm resting for a minute. And that is enough time to recover, but that lactic acid is still hanging out. It doesn't shuttle fast enough out of your system. But that's okay, because you can still track that progress. And as we move through the weeks and the months heading into preseason, we may cut that rest time down. Those of you guys who have done a summer program with us understand this concept. We will expand out our program, dial it in, and then we consolidate down on our rest periods. So that's a big chunk of what we try to do is we reinforce mechanics, we reinforce tempo and resting and turnover and focus, and then we start chopping out 10 to 20 second intervals every rest interval. And holy shit, does that change the dynamics of what you're trying to do. When we build our programs here in the gym, I usually try and build our programs, especially as it relates to sports performance, at about anywhere from 47 to 52 minutes. And that includes the warm-up, and that should give you enough time to come in and hit some foam roll and get some of this and get some of that and get your mental focus on. And then we got 47 to 52 minutes of hauling ass. We do that for a lot of reasons. Number one, hormone levels on one side peak about 30 minutes into strength training program, so we want to make sure that we are peaking when we need to, and then as you get done, you can go get your protein shake and recover and head on your merry way. The other piece is that your mental attention starts to diminish after that time frame, right? So it's more along the lines of quality versus quantity, so we want to make sure that we're working at a high enough threshold. The other side, and I'd say the more important piece as it relates to the bigger picture, is that we are able to hone in your conditioning driven purely by rest periods. It's a lot of what I like to do. I'm going to give you a case in point. So, and I'm not going to try and rub this in at all, but I still have a beautiful 4,000 square foot gym in which I can squat and hang clean and lift weights and do all kinds of fun shit, which I cannot wait to get you guys back in the gym, and I cannot wait to get you guys back involved. Trust me, I'm as frustrated as you are. With that being said, Errol and I have been doing a squat cycle for the past 3 weeks, and we've done 10 sets of 2 for the past 3 weeks. And we're going to do 10 sets of 2 one more time next week. And what we have been doing is we're incrementally working up in our weights. But we're trying to focus on 2 things. We're keeping our rest periods at about 1 to 5, 1 to 4. So I'll get up and do my 2 reps. As soon as I'm done, I rack the bar. Ariel gets up, gets his brain set, unracks, does his 2 reps. That is our 1 to 4 tempo. So we get 10 reps, 10 sets of 2 done in about 12 minutes of work. But as we have increased our weight over the past 3 weeks, we've also increased our rest periods. So we know where that threshold is. The mission is to get 2, right? But the mission is also to increase the intensity and the threshold at which you're working, knowing that we may have to take another extra 10, 15 seconds rest in between each set. So we've kind of baked that into the cake. And a lot of that has to do with being keenly aware of our work and rest ratios. So let's apply it to you guys. You are out, you're stuck, you got body weight, that's all you got no access to gyms right now, or even if you got limited access to some stuff, right? You need to be aware of 3 variables. Number 1, what are you training for? What's your goal? Define that. Write it down. Write it down in comment. Write it down and text it. Shoot us a message. Number 2, what is your program? Right? So is it a plyo program? Is it a speed agility program, strength program, whatever, all the above, right? So it should be all the above, number 1, but we got to define that. And then number 3, what is the intensity at which we are working? Okay, so you've got your goals, you've got your plan, and you've got your focus, essentially, your intensity. You absolutely have to define those 3 things. Now, because you can take a program, let's say I'm just going to write you a program right now, right? Do these 5 things, do these 5 things, do these 5 things. Let's say you take that program and you get it done in 20 minutes. Well, that program is designed to take 50, but you got it done in 20. Do you think that you are working at a high enough threshold if that workout takes you 20 minutes when it's designed to take 30? That answer is no. Now, how do we work on that? So that has a lot to do with focusing on exactly and precisely what you're doing in the given moment. You could give 2 shits about getting the workout done. That's not the focus. It never is the focus. If that is your focus, you are in the wrong place. Go find somebody else. Our focus is to get the workout specifically completed, incorporating your goals, your plan, and your focus. If those 3 things are in check, those 3 things take care of themselves, and then we progress you from there, okay? So if you're doing our plyometrics series, those plyometrics should take you about 15 minutes to do. I can see them right now. There's 4 or 5 different exercises, 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Those exercises should take you a solid 15 minutes to do. But it's mostly because you are working at a threshold level of 9 or higher. And that's your primary focus. But again, because of that work-rest ratio, that is exactly what you're trying to get out of it. The only way to increase your speed, your explosiveness, your vertical jump, your 40-yard dash time, your time to ball, your time to second base, whatever it is that you're focused on, if it's a measurable focus and it needs to be faster, the only way to get there is to practice doing it faster and to practice it more explosively. And every component, I know that sounds ridiculous, right? I get it. I'm just kind of repeating it in my own head as I said it. But part of that is you have all of these components that go into how long it takes you to get from first to second base. So think about how long it takes you to get from first to second base, all right? You're stealing second base. Think about the mechanics that you've got to use, right? Pushing off of your left foot, explosively opening your hip, your right leg, and then getting as linear as you can, as quickly as you can, and accelerating. There is a hell of a lot of processes that go into stealing second base, let alone the mental, focusing on the pitcher, what he's doing out of the stretch, everything that goes into that, right? There's huge mental components of this game. There's huge mental components of what we do in here. I guess that's what I'm really trying to stress. There is a huge mental component to what we do. So in that regard, think of all the components that you've got to build, incorporate, break down, and get better at that go into stealing second base. So you have to apply that attention to detail to every single thing that you are doing, prepping to get ready for your next season, your next event, whatever it is that's coming up in your future, right? And work to rest ratio is hugely important. With my work to rest, I'll reiterate one more time. Any exercise that I do that is a big muscle mover, squats, hang cleans, sprints, jumps, they are going to require more rest to work maximally. That 1-to-5, 1-to-7, 1-to-8 ratio is golden because it allows you enough time to recover, allows you enough time to maximally work. If I'm thinking about the conditioning component, those rest periods are going to be shorter. 1 to 2 to 3 works into that lactic acid threshold. 1 to 1 is aerobic. All right, I'll post this on our YouTube site when we're done. I'll put those ratios up, and we build programs based on those ratios. They are hugely important with what we do. But think about this and think about how this ties back to last week, and I'll wrap this up. When we defined your sport, let's take soccer. I think soccer was 50, 20, 30, 50% ATP. 50% of that sport is played in 0 to 10 seconds. 20% of that sport is played in 10 seconds to 2 minutes, right? It ain't up to 2 minutes, but you know what I mean. 10 seconds to maybe 20 seconds, 25. And then the rest of that sport is played in aerobic mode, 30%. So think about that ratio, 50, 20, 30. And then think about, on the other side, your work to rest ratio. How much work are you doing that's 1 to 1 in your training for soccer? How much work are you doing that's 1 to 5 in your training for soccer? All right, hopefully you have an answer for that question in your head. Because 50% of your work, at least in the off season, should be 1 to 5 in that ATP PC system, meaning you are working on power, explosiveness, and acceleration, right? You're working on those big muscle movers that are high energy producers. That is the only way you get faster. That is the only way that you get quicker and work on improved speed and agility. The more aerobic conditioning that you're doing, the more that slows down the progress on the twitch side. Do not forget that, and I cannot stress it enough. If I am doing nothing but long distance running for my conditioning, I am inhibiting the explosive and power production on the other side. Period. You can't outrun that. Doesn't matter. Male, female, old, young. Don't give a shit. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. I'll say it one more time. There's no way around it. You have to start dialing in the specifics of exactly what you're doing, working in that fast twitch, high energy system. I'm talking to soccer players still, but I can talk to anybody. I can talk to volleyball players too. But volleyball players, we're not doing a lot of running in volleyball practice. If we are, I'm stopping it. I want to work on explosiveness, ankle strength, hip strength, all of the above, shoulder strength, right? Soccer needs to be trained in the ATP PC system. The elites do it. That's what they work on. That's what they develop. Not only is that power and production, it's injury prevention. So that's my 2 pennies. Think about your program. Think about what you're doing. If you've got questions about your program, just shoot us a line. That's why we're here. It's what we do. I know we're closed, but we'll be open soon. And we'll be back to business, and we'll be back to creating indestructible, powerful athletes. That's our job. That's our mission. And hopefully you guys learned something today. So again, think about your energy systems, aerobic, anaerobic. What am I training for? What is my plan? What is my focus? How hard am I working? Hugely critical to what you're doing, guys. Hugely critical. But if you want to get to where you're going, you've got to have a vision, you've got to have a plan, and then you've got to implement it. All right? I'm off my soapbox. hopefully you guys learned something. Please like our YouTube page, subscribe. We will keep updating. We will keep doing these. I want to add more. These are fun. Hopefully you guys are enjoying them because I love coaching. It's what I do. It's what I was born to do. So that's all I got, guys. Take care, and we will see everybody very soon. Thank you.